Welcome back to another episode of Carnage Unleashed, presented to you by Carnage Media. This is our 10th episode. I have a mustache, which means it is November, and I am joined, of course, by my lovely co-hosts, Kev Nevick and Wade Anthony. Gentlemen, we just had a card 2 weekends ago now. How are we feeling?
Feeling good. Feeling good. How about you, Kev?
Yeah, I agree with Wade. That was quite a weekend for us. We were filming a comedy special in Northwest Ohio Friday night, spent the night in West Virginia, got everything ready. Had the first time I ever called a card that was boxing and MMA all in one. First time I saw boxing in an octagon cage like that. It was quite an experience. And now with an extra week in between now and then, and we've had time to, let it marinate, so to speak, and can finally give our thoughts to all of you at home that weren't able to catch it. So, Clayton, how have you been in the meantime, sir?
Staying busy, staying active. This week has been a very, very busy week school-wise, but we're staying on top of it so far. I've studied for probably about 8 total hours today, so I'm happy to be able to take a break and talk about one of my favorite things, it being combat sports. So excited to dive into this card. I was not there for this one, sadly, but I was able to watch the pay-per-view, which all of you should do if you get the chance. Always Carnage Media pay-per-view, and there were there were a lot of good fights in the MMA fights, man. There was there was a lot of blood. I'm not gonna lie. That's some of the most blood I've ever seen in at any level of mixed martial arts in our co-main event. But we'll have plenty of time to dive into that. But Kev, Wade, I say we just jump right in.
I agree. Wade, where do you want to start? Because I already, for those of you who don't know, I did a little write up for the whole thing. So feel free. I'll try to find the article and put it in the description there. Put a comment in if those of you want to follow along with the card. But yeah, so I've kind of already put my thoughts out there, but I'll still share them here with who I think were some candidates for fight of the night. But boss man, well, why don't we start with you, Wade? What was some of the fights you want to highlight from that night?
Um, I just wanted to kick off with Andrew Lanigan, who kicked off the show. He won his fight by decision to Hassani Carter. Um, yeah, he came up to me right after his fight and was like, "How did I look?" I was like, "You look pretty good. You looked um not as clean as you did before in the last fight, but you still look like you held your own there." He's like, "Yeah, I originally wasn't. I had another fight, but then that got backed out. Then I didn't really train as hard." And he's like, "Then they found me a fight, so I stepped back in, pretty much, kind of like on a short notice after he like stopped going to the gym." I was like, "You look pretty clean." Um, he's like, "Yeah, I just was out of shape." So I was like, "That's kudos to him for stepping back like a week or two and then getting an opponent and then kicking off a card looking pretty technical. Just his cardio's shot, but good for him. That's not easy to do, to come in and expect not to have a fight, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, you got an opponent," and then kick off a card. So kudos to him.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you there. And that fight was a phenomenal way to start things off between Andrew and Hassani Carter. It was the first few fights, honestly, everything set the tone really well. Of course, nothing could have prepared us for, as the chat is reminding us, all of that blood. I think that's what I said on the air was, well, they don't call it carnage for nothing, folks. But yeah, that was absolutely intense. But another one that I wanted to talk about, and I don't know, maybe we'll just go through. We had Landon Klinger versus Caden Hastings, which was another good fight. And then the immediately following that though was Nico Payne versus Trey Cusick, heavyweight bout. Wade and Clayton, I don't know, you may have heard some of this in the original uh, pay-per-view there. I know we had our color commentator Christian Getzy was there, and this was one. There were a couple of bouts that I got to use, Clayton, my infamous I'm glad I'm not the one calling these fights. And we had a couple in there that might have, I don't know if I want to use the word controversial, but just sort of they were kind of 50-50. Some fights that were very close to call. I will just say that. So, Wade, I'll toss it to you. You were there for the Nico and Trey fight. What were your thoughts on that one? That one was one Nico, I believe, won that one by split decision, if I am correct.
You are correct, Kev.
Yes, he did. He won by split decision, and Nico was tall, so he he had a lot of length on him. Trey, being the shorter guy, had to get in and really try to work the inside, which I thought he did pretty well. In my honest opinion, I think that Trey probably pulled that off. But my opinion doesn't matter. The judges do. So, but in my opinion, I think Trey pulled that one off, getting to the inside a little bit more and scoring more points, in my opinion. So, did you have that same kind of thought, Kev?
That was the takeaway. I mean, and I tend to lean on our experts. We do a great job. Wade, you and Zach do a great job, and the promoters. Shout out to them as well. They do help at times, providing us with color commentators, and they're usually pro fighters. And I lean heavily on their experience. So when I ask them, I tend to agree with them, tend to lean in that direction, and that was Christian's thoughts as well. I mean, it's right there in the tape. You can hear him. It was one that, yeah, I genuinely thought that Trey had done a good job getting underneath the reach, because yeah, Nico, I think it was 6'8" or something like that.
He was
Just
huge, man.
massive. Now I will say there's one other one that I felt a little more strongly about on this card. This wasn't the only one that I was like, man, I don't know what I'm supposed to be looking for. If I called this fight, so if I had this scored so incorrectly in my head, like what don't I yet know about this sport? Like what do I still have to learn about this sport? But we'll get to that one here in a second. Then we had, Benjamin Myers looked great against John Bales. John Bales, shout out again to him, a veteran of Carnage Media. Love some John Bales fights. Wade, any thoughts on that fight?
Um, yeah. First, I want to say kudos to John because he steps in there and he's an older guy. I think he's like 40, right? Like
He's 40 or 41. He's up there, man. You don't see guys, even like heavyweight guys, you don't often see past 40. So that's just a crazy age to be doing that.
And he looks good. He looks in great shape, and yeah, so kudos to him. He lost a tough one. I thought it was pretty close and technical, and Benjamin Myers pulled it off. So hey, kudos to him getting in the ring and still staying active and competing at the level he's doing at, because it's not easy at his age and he's still doing it. So if anybody has doubts out there, look at John Bales, some of his fights, and you'll be inspired to get in the ring.
Absolutely. You can check those out right here. Well, it depends on where you are, because through the glories of our partners over at StreamYard, we are streaming at 8 different locations right now. So let's just say Carnage Media's YouTube channel. If you're looking for some motivation, if you're like, man, I don't know if I can get into this fight game, go watch a couple of John Bales fights on Carnage Media's YouTube channel. Go check out all of our fights, to be honest. And hey, another shout out. Appreciate you, chat, so far. We got an active chat, by the way. Always love that. Bite Size Vikes, my dear friend Johnny Football. Shout out. Thank you, sir, for stopping by. Also, shout out to everybody from Twitch. We got Arctic Wolf, Pity X_X, Hotwire26. Thank you guys so much. Keep your comments coming. We appreciate you. Next on the card was Aaron Cox versus Jack Farrar. Clayton, I know you weren't with this one live, but any thoughts on this one or the last one? I think I accidentally skipped you on the last one. So any thoughts on those fights?
No, all's good. It was, I don't know, it was just a good fight. Both guys were former high school athletes. I know Jack's 18. I'm not sure how old the other guy was.
25, I believe.
Man.
Yeah, 25.
I remember there was a
Aaron
little
Cox,
bit of
25.
an age jump. That 7 years is a big deal. That's 7 extra years of strength you can build up. That's 7 extra years of experience. So kudos to Jack for stepping in there. He didn't walk away with a decision, or with a victory, but I mean, he stepped up. He took the fight. He's a young guy. He's going to keep learning. I'm a fan of Jack Farrar for sure.
Yeah,
Same.
he lost by split, so one judge thought that he won it. So kudos
One
to
of
him.
3. Were there 3 split decisions? There were 3 or 4.
Yes, there were at least 3.
There was 3.
3. Okay. Yeah, and that leads me to the next one. Now, this one was another candidate, in my opinion, guys, for fight of the night. Emmanuel Too Sharp Toa taking on RJ Flores. Oh my goodness, guys. This one was wild. And before we dive into it, shout out Gate Sniper. Thank you, brother. It's Carnage Media, the best talk, breakdown, and show out. We appreciate you. Hey, we need to have you on soon. All right.
Absolutely.
When you got some time, come hang out with us. We want to hear your expertise, have you talk about some of these fights with us, Gates. But in the meantime, brother, appreciate the shout out. And Pity says that was a great fight. RJ looked amazing. Yes, he did. But you know what? Pity says RJ completely changed his style that night. Emmanuel Toa looked amazing as well, right? Like that. The one thing we all know about RJ, because we've seen a lot of his fights. Whenever I tell a new commentator if they haven't seen RJ fight yet, it was like 2 things. He's got one speed and one direction. All right. He's gonna keep coming forward. And there is nothing you're going to be able to do about it unless he flat just runs out of gas, which you don't really see happen. The thing with Toa that was amazing, and I was fortunate enough, his head coach Troy Moore stopped by the desk while we were setting up to give me a little more insight. He announced he was going pro after that fight, and you could see it in his footwork, at his ability to avoid some of those punches. But this would, Gates says right here, RJ got robbed. And he would also, let's do it. Let's set it up. But let me push it to you, Wade, and then Clayton. What do you think? Was this another iffy decision on your part? Do you think RJ got robbed?
This was about as razor thin as they come, right? Like this, I would argue that this was even closer than Trey Kusak's fight. Again, razor thin decision there. Oh my gosh. Both guys had outstanding fights. Like we've said before, RJ Flores is going to go out there and he is going to put on a show every single time. And he did that again, going 4 hours away from where he trains at here in Findlay. That's a big deal. That's 4 hours in the car. You got to make weight. You got to rehydrate, all that good stuff. This is probably realistically my fight of the night. Just a razor thin decision. Very close. Very close. That's all I can say about the finish. Very close.
I agree. This is probably my fight of the night too. It was just super close. It was a very technical fight, which is not RJ's like typical way of fighting. He's usually in your face and go. And you saw a more technical side of him where he was breaking down his technique in and out, jabbing. And kudos to Emmanuel. I've never seen him fight before, but he is a very technical fighter and looked amazing out there against RJ. And he won by split decision against RJ. So his head movement was, I think, is what pulled that off for him because he had very good head movement and was making RJ miss a lot. But that's my fight of the night. They did amazing and they put on a show, and that was a title fight too.
Yeah, it was. I don't disagree. It was right up there. It's hard to pick a fight of the night, but it was right up there for me. One thing, a note from Christian Getzy at the color commentary table, what he was telling me in amateur boxing, hooks do not count. And so one of the things that he thought might have been a decision maker was that RJ was landing a lot of hooks and that it wouldn't count for the scoring. That was something that was honestly news to me. So I don't know if maybe that's something to keep in mind, that because what he was saying in the pay-per-view was that amateur coaches, a lot of times what they'll lean heavily because there's a scoring box, right? Like so they're just like straights, just 1, 2 straights. He says he has seen amateur boxing matches where it was clear by watching the fight who the better fighter was or who would have won, but not enough of their strikes actually scored, and therefore they would lose the judge's decision. So take that with a grain of salt, because I am poorly explaining it from someone else's words, but just something to keep in mind there, and something to keep a lookout for on future cards.
I wonder if that varies from state to state too. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I've never heard that before though. I wonder why that wouldn't count. That's odd.
Yeah,
But
yeah, it's a known thing for like amateurs. Like it's just like a scoring box is like right in here. So you just got straights, ones and twos, hitting them directly down that like middle line is what scores for the judges. And I think it's just for them, it's an easier way to score, and instead of getting more like technical with the hooks and like the liver shots and all that stuff, it's just keep it down the middle. You score there, we can count how many, and that's my take on it. I really think that they should score it as a whole. Good head movement, hooks, and all that
Yeah,
should
God
count.
forbid you look like a more polished pro fighter in your amateur fight. You should be penalized for that. Crazy.
who'd have thunk it?
Yeah, wild, right? And actually, shout out again. Gates tags in with the segue here. He says, Sid with the win out of Orthodox, which that is our next fight. One of the ones I was most hyped for, guys. Faith Silent Treatment Nichols taking on Insidious Sydney Leith. They both have great nicknames. They are two of our most watched fighters over on Carnage Media. So if you're not familiar with either of them, go check them out. All you got to do is hit our videos tab and hit that little popular button. They will be right up there at the top for you to check out. But that was another Gates with the good note here. Yeah, Sydney came out and fought Orthodox, normally a southpaw fighter. So that was a very intriguing matchup. I thought they both did a great job. Of course, Sydney comes away with the victory. Wade, what were your thoughts there?
I think it's great. They had so much respect for each other, and they, at their weight, it's hard to find a lot of opponents. So they're teammates
Yeah.
and best friends, and so they just went out there to go iron sharpens iron kind of deal, and just go out there and better themselves. And Sydney pulled it off with the decision, but she showed so much respect to Faith, and I'm sure that they just taken it as a learning experience. Obviously, Sydney went in there working orthodox because she's normally a southpaw, and looked pretty good. Like she's very technical, and for such a little frame, holds some power. So that was a great fight. It was just those two went in there with respect and just trying to get better because they can't find a whole lot of opponents at their weight. So they're like, hey, let's get in there and better ourselves.
Yeah, it's been difficult. We talked about it during the pay-per-view, I believe. It's been difficult for both of them to find people to fight, or to find people to stick around in those fights and show up for those fights. So, yeah, credit to both of them. I can't wait to watch both of them fight again. Previously, before that, the most recent time I remember seeing Faith, I want to say was it Ego Fight Series? I remember seeing her in an MMA setting, and yeah, she was just I remember just finishing with a flurry of strikes left and right. So I know both Sydney and Faith are going to put on many more stellar performances for us here at Carnage Media. So I can't wait. Hopefully we're seeing them headline. I think they both are main event material. So I look forward to seeing them headline future cards on Carnage Media. And speaking of mixed martial arts, that's going to take us to what was essentially sort of like the main event portion of the card, right, gentlemen? 3 MMA fights and more blood than this commentator has ever seen. You know what? Fun little bit, a little backstory, a little inside baseball for all of you guys.
Hit
I
me.
wrote up a little article, just kind of very quickly what the results were, and I had to, no joke, there was blood on my notes. When we wrapped up, Wade, I think I told you this. I had to take my phone to the bathroom and wash the blood off of my phone. It was like being at SeaWorld, man. When the lights came on, it was like a crime scene. There were flecks, little spots of blood all over the commentary desk. Just incredible. And luckily, so far to my knowledge, everyone's okay. So it wasn't like I mean, it was scary, but it wasn't anything horrifying. There were no tragedies. It was just, oh my God, are they bleeding? Oh my God, I've never seen that much blood. So we'll start with Joshua Dent versus Xander White. Now, this one, just before we get into it, I say this was another one split decision that I think a lot of people maybe have different feelings on how this one went. I would say, me personally, this one was the hardest one for me to understand, just because Xander had early in the first round a big black eye to Josh on a kick to the head. And I believe it was another head kick that had busted open the bridge of his nose. I may be wrong on what strike had done it, but those just seemed so impactful. But overall, Josh, I guess, won the grapple game, and did take the split decision. So, Clayton, what were your thoughts on that first? I mean, obviously these were amazing fights, but what was your thought on the first MMA bout of the night?
This bout really reminded me of Volk versus Islam 1. Like, if you would have flipped it on at the end, like, Xander won that fight. You know what I mean? Josh's nose was broken. He had a big black eye. Looked like he'd gotten beaten up in an alley, basically. But like you said, Kev, I think Xander winning the grappling game, like, mixed martial arts is a sport. It's not just a fight, I guess, is how I kind of look at it objectively. So, like, and grappling is a part of that. And if you win the grappling exchanges on the ground, and he wasn't doing like a crazy amount of damage, but like enough damage. I don't know. I don't get it. It was, like I said, I understand, but like if you flipped it on at the end, Xander won that fight. So that's about all I got there.
I agree with you. And that's going back to my last argument. Like, when does control, like, when does it matter more than doing damage? And because, like, I feel like Josh took him down and just held him, just like in the Islam one fight. Um, and Xander he just put in some damage, and obviously the blood was flowing again. And yeah, he just did way more damage. He got taken down, and he was just held there rather than Josh doing a whole lot of damage on top. But nothing to take away from his performance. He got that takedown and he controlled him. And Xander had a hard time getting back up. But for me, I felt like standing up, Xander won that positioning and dealt the more damage. So for me, I think the way I judge it, Xander pulled that off. But understanding how judges judge, yeah, I can see why they gave it to Josh, because he got the takedowns. He had that control and kind of nullified a lot of that time. So I understand why they did it. I just don't agree with it.
I love that.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
and I don't necessarily disagree. I'm just going to say, I will retweet what Wade just said. And before we dive back into the card, we just got a shout out from Sublife. So, and I happen to know, I think we were going to shout Sublife out anyway. So, Wade, how do you feel about doing it while they're here right now?
Yes, yeah, I want to. Yeah, we're gonna shout them out. We're gonna have Justin Flemings on our next show next Monday, so stay tuned for that. Um, for those of you who don't know, he is a host of Sublife, and they do jujitsu podcasts, I believe, and he has an 18-year history of martial arts. He's very well versed in the world of martial arts. Um, he's done MMA. And he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, um, with a crazy grappling career at 151 and 52 record. Crazy. So stay tuned to get some grappling advice and to see all what he is into, and get to know Justin next Monday.
I'm very excited for that. And so, one more time, we'll put it up here on the screen. It is Sublife. Go ahead and give them a follow. and let them know that we sent you, and come check us out next week. Next Monday, we will be chatting it up. So very excited for that. And apparently I tried to share the link to the article and it did not share. So there we go. Don't mind all those new comments in there. That's just me. You guys can follow along with us as we cover the rest of this event. But yeah, shout out to Sublife. Can't wait to meet you. Can't wait to talk with you. Clayton, any thoughts for, or wait, did we get your thoughts on Josh and Xander? I'm so sorry. I
Yeah,
got
we
off
did.
track. Okay.
Just a close fight. If you want to score grappling higher, then Josh won. If you want to score the actual fight as a whole, Xander won. So
yeah, I agree. Retweet all of that. And this next one had a little bit of controversy potentially in its own right. Briar Cadle defeated Bob Price. I believe, gentlemen, this was our only finish of the evening. This was a TKO stoppage, at which point, so technically this was Briar victory, TKO from strikes, right? It's kind of hard to describe this situation audibly. So essentially, there was a struggle. They were both on the ground, right? Wade, feel free to hop in here at any point to correct me. But essentially, what I could see from my position and with the monitors was they were on the ground. I believe Briar was on top. And at one point, we could just start to see a lot of blood, and we didn't really see the strike that drew the blood. But at the end of the round, Bob had his nose broken out across the bridge as well and was bleeding profusely to the point that they did not start the next round. It was called after that. So now I had heard at the time. Now this is let me say this. This is also secondhand. So I don't want someone said that they heard this. So I don't want. We are not reporting the news here. This is speculation. I'll be very clear about that. But I had heard around that time that that Bob had maybe said something about it was an elbow that he thought had hurt his nose. So I want to throw that out there because I didn't personally see it myself, but that was sort of it sounded like that was a contested or something that was brought up from that corner. I don't know if it happened. Wade, did you see anything? What were your thoughts on the fight in general?
I was on the computer running the ones and twos this time. Good old pity X_X has been training me just for this case when he couldn't be there. So I was watching it, and I was just getting like the bird's eye view because they're right in that corner, and I didn't see anything. And then they moved, and I saw a little bit of blood. Excuse me, hold on. A little bit of blood, and then they kind of stood up, and it was just a waterfall of blood. The only thing I could think of is, especially when I heard about the elbow thing, is that when he was on top, that could have been like a forearm post in his face. I don't know. From that position, I could see that happen where he's trying to put pressure on them and then kind of do like a cross face. So in wrestling, you just like cross face their head up cross, but instead of that, he's just putting like a forearm and like rubbing it. I could see that doing that, but I really couldn't see anything. I was at that bird's eye view, and then they stood up and just blood everywhere. And I was like, holy cow. And then I saw the doctor go in, and I was like, ooh, with that amount of blood, I don't know if it's going to go. And he called it.
And right, no argument from me on that part, right? You always hear me preach to the side of athlete safety, fighter safety. Obviously, in that moment, I'm sure if you ask Bob, he's fine. Let me go out there, and that's these guys and gals. They all have that warrior spirit, and that's why the doctors and the coaches have to be there, right? Because they will go out. Some of them are more than willing to go out there and die in the octagon for a W. So whether it was the right decision or not, I'll always kind of support that, and we look forward to seeing Bob fight again and Briar as well, which takes us into the main event for Superfly Promotions, Monsters Unleashed. Another two gentlemen, couple of great fighters that we are familiar with here.
Before we move on, though,
Carnage
Kev, I do
Media.
have two
Yes.
things on the last fight.
Get in there.
So ladies and gentlemen, this fight reminded me of two fights. Lawler versus McDonald 1 with the amount of blood, or Lawler McDonald 2 with all the blood in there. That's in the UFC Hall of Fame. Go check that out. And for those of you older, more seasoned fans, go check out season 10 of The Ultimate Fighter. Rampage Jackson and Rashad Evans were the coaches. In the first episode, a guy named, man, what was his name? John Madsen beat up a guy named Abe Wagner, and Abe had like a cut where you could see his skull like on his forehead from ground and pound. This reminded me of that. There was so much blood. And like when Bob stood up, I think it was Gates that walked into the corner to like try and clean him up. I was like, uh-oh. Like, it doesn't matter who's in that corner, no matter how experienced you are. That was just a ridiculous amount of blood. And Gates did what he could, but that was a deep, deep cut. Yeah, Zach knows. I know Zach's a big Rampage Jackson guy. Roy Nelson was on that season too, but that's also all I had. But yeah, main event, David Music versus Preston Weichert. Good show for David. David's from Wellsburg, West Virginia, where this card was held. So big hometown show for him. And he managed to walk away with a UD.
Yeah, well put, Clayton. Wade, what were your thoughts?
I was gonna say, yep. It's a very clean, technical fight with David. He's always going in there very technical and putting on the pressure. Preston, obviously, he just coming off a belt victory from the previous week, coming into this one, I believe, right? He was fighting off the takedown a little bit. And yeah, they just put on a great technical show. And David, he always looks so crisp. And I think that's what won it for him. He's very in and out, going for those takedowns and getting that jab in there.
Yeah, absolutely. He was technical and he punches with a lot of power. And one of the things I'll say about Preston, which I think is very good. I don't know that it necessarily worked. I don't think it worked in his advantage in this fight. But the thing about Preston is his ability to attack from all kinds of different angles. I mean, he tried some spin kicks, like some spinning heel kicks and stuff like that. I'm just not used to seeing so much of that, right? Like you normally, a lot of times at this level, you'll see guys have maybe one or two moves like that they might pull out at any one given time, or it's something that they've been working with their coach to set up. But he just has this ability to throw strikes from almost any position that he's in. And I do think that's something that's going to bode well for him in the future. But yeah, this one was a great show for David. He has earned that nickname, the Nuke. We talked about that before. Listen, when I can hear your punches over the crowd and through this headset that's connected to the microphone in front of me, that's a punch I don't ever want to have to take. So well done. Tip of the cap. And yeah, it was great for him to have that sort of hometown show while also, he had to travel just like everybody else. But, being able to do that in front of his home crowd, that had to be an amazing feeling. And it was a great show. Shout out to Devin and everybody out there at Superfly Promotions to put that together. It was very unique to watch 7 boxing matches in a caged octagon. And the venue is wonderful. I thought they did a great job with everything. So shout out, really appreciate the hospitality down in West Virginia. That was my first time working down there. Can't wait to be back. So just hopefully not in the snow, because you guys got some hills.
Yeah, they do. Oh, I just wanted to mention, it was a cartwheel kick. I think I heard you guys like, oh, that was a cartwheel quick kick. And what was his name? Christian?
Yes.
Yeah. I think I remember I was working the 1s and 2s, and he's like, "Oh man, that was a cartwheel kick. I haven't seen that in a match, and I don't know how long." And I was like, "That was that you put it perfectly." Preston does really well with different angles and getting his strikes out there. Kind of reminds me a little bit of like a Sugar Sean, where he can work them angles. But David did really good at just controlling the cage.
I agree, and thank you, Devin. We appreciate you too. So again, can't wait to see you again. Look forward to the next one. Clayton, did you have any other thoughts on this main event as we cap off a wonderful card, Superfly Promotions?
Not too much. Like I said, it was good to see the hometown guy get it done. So, shout out to David. Hopefully, I hope he can fight before the end of the year. That'd be kind of fun. But I'm sure he'll be turning pro maybe next year. I don't know. He said that in interviews with us before that he doesn't want to rush it, which makes sense. That's
Yep.
a big decision to make. So I hope he turns pro selfishly sooner rather than later, so we can get him to the big show. But you never know.
I don't disagree with you there. And one more time, thank you to everyone involved. Superfly Promotions, we can't wait to be back. Thank you to those of you who tuned in on the pay-per-view. We greatly appreciate you. We wouldn't be here without you. And everybody tuning in so far, keep the comments coming, keep the questions coming. The Wrestling Minute will be what we close the night with, and I have some big news for all of you, so don't go anywhere. But speaking of the big time, those big promotions where we may very soon see the likes of David Music, Preston Weichert, Gates, the Sniper Cook. Wade, we have had some UFC fights happen since the last time we all sat here. And this is when I pass it to you. This is your program of the show, sir. What would we like to talk about in the world of UFC?
Yeah, I wasn't able to watch a whole bunch of the fight night Saturday, but I did watch a couple of the highlights. And Derek Lewis, man, in the main event. You think he comes out here and you're gonna see a freaking clock show or laying them heavy hands, but he got taken down and controlled for, I think I saw it was like 20, 21.
It was like 21 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, insane. For someone who said jiu-jitsu doesn't matter, you can just stand up. Have you seen those clips where he's like, jiu-jitsu doesn't matter, and he's just like standing up? Just, he did not have that this one, and he hasn't had a good run. Has not had a good run. What's your thoughts, Clayton?
Derek Lewis is down 5 out of his last 7. He's not looked great against grapplers. I hate to say it in chat. You can go ahead and bully me in the comments if you like, but I think that we might have seen the end of Derek Lewis as we know it. Derek is 38 years old now. He's the formula is there to beat him now, right? All you got to do is take him down. And like you said, Wade, jiu-jitsu doesn't work. It does if you're good at it. So I think that unfortunately we might have that might be the last of Derek Lewis as we know it. But there were 2 good one-punch knockouts on this card. Elvis Brenner, I think that's how you say that. I'm going to butcher all of these names. Knocked out Kanyan Kruszewski. One-punch KO. That was awesome. And then another one-punch KO in the prelims. Vitor Petrino knocked out Modestas Bukauskas. I got nothing, guys.
I think that was exactly right, to be honest. No notes there.
These names were ridiculous to say.
But 2 great one-punch knockouts. I was satisfied. It was in Sao Paulo. Got me warmed up for 295 this weekend. Ooh,
you guys see that in the comment?
Heck yeah, man.
Preston Weichert says, when Bob's healthy, let me run it up with him. Winner rematches David. Hey, I'm not a booker. That's one of the many things they are smart enough to not pay me to do. But I'll call it. Tell me when and where. I'll be there with my microphone in hand. Zach, Wade, you guys get on it, man.
I was gonna say he's right there. He's right there.
Yes. Let's do that.
Let's do it.
But the other big piece of UFC news that we have is UFC 295 this weekend. Yuri Prohaska versus Alex Pereira in our main event for the light heavyweight championship, preceded by Sergey Pavlovich versus Tom Aspinall for the interim UFC heavyweight title. Stipe versus John Jones unfortunately fell out. John Jones had a pectoral injury wrestling in camp. Sucks to see, but that's the fight business, right, gentlemen? We saw it in Carnage Fight Series 3. Like, Dale Brown broke his foot. We had to improvise. Stuff happens. Like, that's part of the business we're in. So, but people are looking past this main event, man. You got the Samurai Yuri Prohaska going against against Easter Island head from the jungles of the Amazon rainforest, Alex Pereira. Like, these two dudes are warriors. These two guys both know what they're doing. Both are knockout artistes. And the winner gets to walk home with the UFC light heavyweight championship belt. Madison Square Garden doesn't get much better.
I think people have written this card off and they don't realize this is still a stacked card. I think it's going to be very, very good card, and I think it's going to be better than what most people are thinking, because you got Jerry and Alex who just got some power. So anything's going to happen in that one. And then the main event, or the co-main event, also, Sergi has freaking power. And then Tom has been on a tear. And then you got Jessica Andrade, who is just like a little mini Hulk. She had so much power for how little she is. It's ridiculous. And it's going to be unique to see against her go against Mackenzie Dern, whose jiu-jitsu is just amazing. So I want to see if Jessica keeps it standing and not go for them big old slams like she usually does, or what? Because I think that's going to be an interesting fight.
All right, gentlemen, the question has to be asked. Main and co-main. Who do you guys have winning? Wade, we can start with you.
You're muted, Wade.
I'm going to thank you. I'm going to say
He's trying to ice me here.
I'm going to say Alex. I think Alex can I think he has power that can end Jury, or however you say his name. Yeah, and then I think I'm gonna go Sergi.
All right, fair enough. Kev, what you got?
I'm going. Oh, let's see. I'm going Pereira for the main. I'm not sure to pick this co-main. Wade, who did you just pick? I'm going to be an antagonist.
Sergi.
All right. Nope. You're wrong. Clayton, what about you? Who you got for the main and co-main? Oh, well, I will say, before I hand it back, I will say, I know Zach's in here, and we've got some people saying, I really wanted to see John's fight. I know we have talked about maybe doing a fight companion for UFC 295, and I know maybe some of the excitement for that kind of dampered when that injury was announced. But I'm just going to say it right now. I'm going to make a proclamation right here live while we got some audience with us. I think we should still live stream that fight. So if you guys would still like to hear us talk throughout UFC 295 with or without John Jones, which, spoiler, it will be without him, let us know. And I think we can get the Doghouse, which normally streams Sundays at 2 p.m., although obviously that date on there is in the past. You get the point. Sundays, 2 p.m. If you guys want to see us talk about UFC 295, I think we should do that. But Clayton, I think I should hand it back to you here. What do you think is going to go down in the main and co-main?
So I'll actually start with the co-main. Like we said, Sergey Pavlovich has Russian power from hell, and Tom Aspinall is about as well-rounded as they come at any division. He's super quick for heavyweight. I like my boy Tom in this one. I hope he gets it done just because I want to see Tom Aspinall versus John Jones. I feel like that'd be a really good matchup. And yeah, hopefully he doesn't get clipped by Sergey and we figure it out from there. In the main, though, Skalina is Czech. Prohaska is from the Czech Republic. I'm going with my boy Yuri.
Oh, okay. I ain't mad at it, though. I feel like it's going to be a close one. It's just going to be whoever's hand lands the right place at the right time, and somebody's going out.
Absolutely. There's no way this fight sees the end, right? Like, there's no way.
No,
but
absolutely not.
I think that's pretty much all we got for the UFC, right, Wade?
Yep. Well, there was some breaking news.
Oh crap! I completely forgot about that. I was looking at that before I got here.
I forgot about that too, but yeah. What was it?
3 title fight announcements. I'm gonna pull it up right now just to make sure I get the dates right.
Got it. January 20th, Strickland versus Duplessis. And that's the one that was a shocker because originally everybody thought it was going to be Hamza. But Sean was very vocal that he didn't deserve it, which I kind of agree.
I agree as well. Sean Strickland has also already been on Twitter complaining about like the communist Canadians because that's where it's going to be. He doesn't want to fight in Canada. So
He's so wild. He's so wild.
let me see if I can find. It's so funny. I was reading it on Twitter and I was like, "Dog, come on now." But I get it. He's the champ. He can fight where he wants. I completely understand where he's coming from. So Sean Strickland versus Dricus Duplessis. Here's his tweet. Why Canada? GSP, you do this BS. No guns, no freedom of speech. UFC, you fucking with me. Sean Strickland, ladies and gentlemen. Sean Strickland.
Yes.
Oh my God, the people's champ right there. Sounds like what a tweet. I love that. And I love the getting GSP involved into it too. You know, I love that. Is he Canadian?
He's not Canadian. He's from California. GSP is. Sean Strickland's from California.
You can't tell with a name like Georges Saint-Pierre, you know, he could have been like a, sorry Canada, but he could have been a real French, you know, could have been a real Frenchman, like my family hails from, you know. It's okay. We love Canada still, you know.
Oh man, Kev's trying to get us canceled.
So most of my family still lives in Canada, all right? I just I'm part of that tree that just did the cool part, that just went France and said, you know what, Canada? How about the United States? That sounds pretty cool. Yeah, it's no hard feelings. Some of us are luckier than others. You know, that's just what I tell my cousins all the time. And I just got uninvited to Thanksgiving, by the way, guys. But that's okay because we have other breaking news. I was about to segue into my segment, but I wanted to make sure. Were there other fights that got announced?
2 more. Alexander Volkanovski will be coming back to defend his featherweight title against Ilya Taporia on the February pay-per-view. That's kind of a quick turnaround after getting head kick KO'd, but I mean, if he wants to get in there and fight, you can't tell. I'll say it. You can't tell the greatest featherweight of all time now.
Yep, he is, and it's kind of sad because I love Max, but he is the best. He is the
I'm gonna go throw up after this.
I know.
But the other fight that was announced today is Sean O'Malley will defend his bantamweight title against Marlon Chito Vera. Already, MMA Twitter is on that one, man.
I'm excited for that one. I want to see that rematch.
For those of you who don't know, Chito Vera is the only person ever to defeat Sean O'Malley. Too many Seans right now. But he knocked him out in I want to say it was late 2020, early 2021. 17-1, and that's his only loss. And if you guys notice now, whenever Bruce Buffer announces Sean O'Malley, when he mentions his record, Sean will go like that real quick to say it wasn't a real loss. So I'm excited. This isn't necessarily who deserves the fight, I think. I think that realistically, Corey Sandhagen probably should have gotten it, but hey, that's one guy's opinion. So I get why they did it. There's a ton of money involved, and you're getting Sean to headline his own card again. So makes a lot of sense. And yeah, lots of good fights booked, and I'm excited to see the people's champ, Sean Strickland, prove the haters wrong once again.
I agree.
But Kev, I think that's all we got. So the floor is yours, good sir.
Well, you know what that means. Well, gentlemen, you mentioned how who was it? Was it Derek Lewis? We were saying his career might be over in the UFC, right?
Yeah.
Well, he could always. That's a guy who I think might have a future in wrestling. You know, I feel like that's a personality that could exist in the world wrestling entertainment. But today's Wrestling Minute, folks, is not about the WWE whatsoever. No. The All Elite Wrestling program that is over on TBS and TNT, they recently had the Icon Sting. Woo! That woo, not the other woo, but hang on. The other woo's coming here in a second. Sting announced his future retirement coming here in, I think, February or March at the Revolution pay-per-view. And billionaire Tony Khan brought him a present last week, and that present was the one styling, profiling, woo maker of another sort. Yes, that is the geriatric Ric Flair, who not only has announced that his Woo energy drink is the official energy drink of All Elite Wrestling, but Flair himself has signed a 3-year deal with AEW, or it's multi-year. I don't know. It might be more than 3 with AEW, and he has already given a list of people he would like to work with. Now, I'm going to keep that list in my pocket for a second, guys. What are your thoughts at the ghost of Ric Flair unretiring from wrestling for about the 18th time?
For those of you who have not listened to his interview on the Joe Rogan Experience, please take 3 hours while you're sitting typing away at your keyboard tomorrow. Oh my God, go listen to it. This dude has lived a life, man. I'm so kind of surprised he's still alive. We'll start there.
Yes.
Like, with as much like alcohol and drugs and wrestling as this guy's done, like, kudos to you that you're still alive, man. We'll start there. But his start to wrestling was really interesting. He got a bone broken in his leg day one in Tampa, Florida. So go give that a listen if you want some background on Ric Flair. But retire, man. Like, you made it out with your health. You're not completely screwed. You have tons of money. Like, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of any combat sport athletes. Yes, all of you purists out there, professional wrestling is a combat sport. It counts. Fight me in the comments. My Twitter handle is cscalina12. You can see it right there. Tweet at me. It counts. It does. So when you come out with a ton of money, you're still, I'm not going to call him healthy, but you're still alive. Like, at least go enjoy yourself, man. Like, you know what I mean? You came out on top. One of the most famous pro wrestlers of all time. I don't like it. I understand why, though. So
I agree. He needs to retire. Just stay in retirement. Don't come back. Just make appearances to say and show your face, but don't get in that ring. I feel like he's one freaking F5 to death.
Yeah, if he takes a bump from Brock Lesnar, he's dead. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, what, 78 now? He's in his 70s for sure.
Yes.
This is going to irk me. I'm looking it up.
Yeah, look that up. I think you're right, though. But yes, so and for those of you who didn't have the, I'll call it pleasure, for lack of a correct word, of watching Ric Flair's last match, it was awful. And we're at a point where he has to work tag or 6-man tag matches. Like, you couldn't watch a 78-year-old man do a one-on-one wrestling match. It would be just like watching paint dry.
74.
74. Okay, thank you. But no, people who saw that, honestly, at that point, the only intrigue is like, are we about to watch this old man die on live television? Like that at that point. And it's so sad. So hopefully he knows better than to get in there and take bumps. Now, he did say, and now here's a little bit of that nature boy hubris. The confidence is the last thing to go, guys, you know. And he said he still believes he's the best promo in all of wrestling. He said he's the best talker. And he said he wants to do some work with AEW current champion MJF, which is also classic Ric Flair. When he named the 3 people he wants to work with, it's 2 of the biggest draws in the company, and then his son-in-law, the guy his daughter's married to. So, you know, he's still ever the politician, Rick. He wants to work with MJF or Andrade El Idolo, who is married to Charlotte Flair, that lucky son of a bitch. And he also wants to get in a fight with Christian Cage, which he's currently doing right now. So he gets to match wits with Christian Cage on behalf of Sting. So there you go, guys. Somehow, some way, the wrestling gods continue to provide me with some form of nostalgia. So that way, the Wrestling Minute, we never have to learn anything new. There's always some old guy coming out of retirement or announcing his retirement, and we can just live in 2003 forever, apparently.
Oh, Kev, most important question of the night. What do you think of all the Vince McMahon memes going around?
Oh, I always love them.
So funny.
They're so good. Like when he came out with that mustache and people were like putting him in as Dr. House in Fallout, or just like all kinds of evil villains with that paper thin drawn on mustache. I can't get enough Vince memes. He he's such an interesting character because he did a lot of good things for the business, did a lot of horrible things for the business, and did a lot of horrible things to people. So it's kind of hard, because there are certain things you can't be like, oh, there's nothing about Vince McMahon that I can be thankful for, appreciative of. It's like, if you like that sport, he's got his hands in a lot of things that you liked, but at the same time, you want to talk about someone who I wish would just retire and go away with his money and stop doing damage to the product that he owns and just to the people in his employ. Yeah. So in the meantime, make fun of that old bastard all you can until he goes and sits in his private jet or something. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, he needs to retire. Also, I have not seen these memes. I will go into the interweb and search them now that he
Do
confirmed
that
it.
as you go to sleep tonight. It's a
It's a
great soul cleanser for sure.
It's been good. I mean, anytime Tony Khan gets any kind of crap on Twitter, his immediate feedback is to be like, people will say, "Oh, Vince McMahon would never do this," and he'd be like, "Yeah, I hear Vince was busy doing other things." Like, he just immediately is like, anytime someone says anything to him, he's like, "Oh yeah, well, the other guy's a sex predator or whatever. The other guy's a sex offender. So what do you got?" So it's an interesting little beef they got. Speaking of 2003, it does. It reminds me of WWE versus WCW all those years ago, where they're just really getting in the mud now.
Nostalgia for me.
One little comment, Kev, that's kind of related to that was Matt Serra was on JRE one time, and Dana White's Looking for a Fight came out like years ago. That was in like 2017. And Matt Serra, Dean Thomas, and Dana would go around they did one in like South Dakota. They went to Hawaii, Florida, New York, and just like go to like regional shows and sign talent, right? And they were in Hawaii for one. And part of the show is they would do like extreme stuff. And Dana's afraid of heights, for those of you who didn't know. And they had him like on the edge, like cliff jumping. And Matt and Dean both jumped off this cliff. And like it took Dana was on the edge of this cliff for like 4 hours or something like that. And they were trying to convince him to jump down. And Matt Serra said that he yelled up at Dana one time, "Scott Coker would jump." For those of you who don't know, Bellator MMA's CEO. So I thought that was kind of funny. That made me laugh out loud. I think I was driving back from the press conference that we did for Mindless Mania Boxing Series, and I was listening to that, and I was like, "Oh man," I half expected him to say, and then Dana jumped in right there. But
yeah, and that's what did it, right? Dana also, he had some interesting comments about Vince recently, where he had said something about, I used to hate the guy because he would go out of his way to fuck with me, but now that he's on my team, he's a joy to work with. And so it's just kind of funny. I can imagine the conversations those two used to have. Apparently, and again, this is classic Vince McMahon. He's a good career politician as well. So apparently he hits Dana White up all the time now, because he's got to make sure he's in a good position at this new company. So apparently Vince is no longer trying to ruin Dana's life. That's been also notoriously a fun little quirk of Vince McMahon's, is if you're in any way part of his competition, he will do just about anything he can to fuck with you and take your money. So can't wait to see what that merger, that UFC WWE merger, continues to look like for the rest of us. But folks, with the Wrestling Minute wrapping up, that is also going to put a bow on our show this week, which is great. We are closing in on that hour mark. I always love when we can cross that threshold. So in order to do that, why don't we, Wade, we'll start with you. Tell them where they can find you, but also, if you don't mind, can you tell the folks about what we're doing next week with Sublife again one more time?
Yes, as always, you can find us YouTube, Carnage Media Paper PPV, and Twitter, Carnage Media PPV, Facebook, Carnage Media, Discord, Carnage Media. Am I forgetting anything? Instagram, Carnage Media. And then as what we're doing next week, we're going to be having special guests Justin Flemings from Sublife, the host of Sublife podcast. So give them a follow and tune in next week so we can get to know who Justin Flemings is and all his combat experience. It's going to be great. And I'm excited for the show. And I'll pass it off to you, Clayton.
All right. You guys can find my personals at cscalina12 on Instagram and Twitter. Tweet at me during the next UFC event. I will be in the college hockey student section at BG, but rest assured it will be on my phone. Don't you worry about it. But make sure to follow my podcast at the Hot Take Sports 16 on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Go give us a like. Give us your best hot take. And also, shout out to Gates the Sniper Cook. He was commenting a lot tonight. He has a title fight coming up. I believe it's December 1st, I'm pretty sure. So December 1st, I want to say in Pittsburgh, maybe? December 1st, Pittsburgh, Gates the Sniper Cook, first MMA title fight. 3 finishes in the first round, all in under 2 minutes. So make sure to go check him out. And Kev, I think I'm going to kick it over to you.
Yes, thank you, Clayton. That leaves it to me. Ladies and gentlemen, you can find me on Twitter at @KevNevic_. You can also find me on Instagram there if you'd like. I basically just post behind the scene photos of the events that we're at. It's my own little, hey, look, I did a thing. So, yeah, if you want to check that out on Instagram, you can. Otherwise, find Bite Size Sports everywhere you can find internet at Bite_Size Sports. That's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all that good stuff. Whenever I am not here, you can find me live on Thursday nights at 9 p.m. on Bite Size Sports Network talking about the NBA on The Bounce. You can find me on Wednesday nights talking Star Wars with all my nerdy friends over at Dweeb on the Han Shot First podcast. That is right. And Tuesdays and Sundays, look at this. I've been gifted this amazing canopy here. Tuesday nights, Sunday nights, you can guess which bald bearded dude on this wall is me. Go check out me and my buddy Danny on the Clout Route, the fastest growing comedy podcast in my neighborhood. So anyway, go ahead and give us a shout, guys. I appreciate y'all so very much. And of course, come see us next week, 8 p.m. Monday. That's Eastern time. We will see you on the next Carnage Unleashed. Bye-bye.
See y'all next week.